The cosine rule says that in any triangle, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Now we can change some of these letters around, but the important thing is that this side here, which is small a, is opposite this angle, which is capital A. So if we make b squared the subject of this, then the other two sides have to be squared and added here, and they have to appear in this product. And the angle has to be the angle corresponding to small b, so we have to have capital B here. If we make c the subject of this, so we have c squared out here, then these two sides must be the other two sides. So we have to have a squared plus b squared, so we get the sum of the squares of the other two sides. And in the product here we have to have a and b. And this angle must be corresponding to side C, so we have to have capital C here. Now I will consistently use just this form here. So when I'm looking for a side, I will call it small a. When I'm looking for an angle, I will call it capital A. So I won't be using these at all. There's no need to. Let's take an example. Suppose that we want to find the missing side in this triangle. Now, as before, I'm going to use the letter A to stand for a missing side or angle. Since we're talking about a missing side, I will call it small a. If we were talking about an angle, we'd call it capital A. Now, if we try to use the sine rule in this problem, we will find that we do not have enough information. Let's just first of all attempt to use the sine rule. If this is small a, then this angle is capital A. And then we need another side, so we have a choice. We can use either this side or this side. Let's suppose that we try to use this side here as our side, so we call it small b. Then if this side is small b, this angle here is capital B. So our sine rule says that a over sine A equals b over sine B, and from that we get a equals b sine A over sine B. We just multiply cross by sine A. Of course, we don't have enough information. B we know is 10, capital A is 30 degrees, but the problem is we don't know what angle B is. We have no idea what this is, and we cannot get this angle because we don't know this angle up here. If we knew two angles, we could find B. So we don't have enough information to use the sine rule. And it doesn't matter if we call this side here B. If we call this side B, then capital B would become this angle. See, this side is opposite this angle here, but we don't know this angle either, so we can't use the sine rule. So here we have a situation where we have two sides and an angle in between the two sides. We want to find the third side. Sine rule cannot be used. So we can always be mindful of this situation. Two sides and an angle in between involves using the cosine rule to find the missing side. So we call the other two sides that were given B and C. It doesn't matter which one we call B. I can call this one B, and I can call this one C. And capital A, of course, is 30 degrees. It doesn't matter which we call B and C because we're going to be squaring B and C and adding them, and we're going to be multiplying them together here. So the order of squaring, adding, or multiplying makes no difference. So A squared is going to equal B squared plus C squared. Well, B is 10, C is 6, minus twice the product of these two sides. It's 10 times 6 times the cos of the angle in between them. So A is 30 degrees. So if we put all this expression into the calculator, we get this value here. We want the square root of this number. So what I will do is I will put this number to the power of a half. It'll save me writing it down again. So to two decimal places we get 5.66. So if these lengths are in meters, then A is 5.66 meters. Here is another situation where we have to use the cosine rule. We are given three sides of a triangle. That means this triangle is fully specified. If we have three sides of it, then there's a unique triangle with these three sides, and we're interested in finding one of the angles. So in this case, we have the triangle XYZ, and we're going to get angle XZY. So XZ is one arm of the angle, ZY is the other arm, and the angle is at Z. The corner or vertex of the angle is at Z. That's the letter in the middle here. Of course, we know from the previous example that this angle is 30 degrees. I'm using the same triangle. But let's see how we go about finding this angle. Now again, I prefer to use the letter A to represent a missing quantity. So we're looking for this angle, so I prefer to call it angle A. So we use capital A for an angle. If the angle is labelled capital A, then the side opposite capital A must be labelled small a. And the other two sides are small b and small c, and it doesn't matter which is which. So let's call this one small b and this one small c. Now if you try to use the sine rule to solve this triangle, you won't get anywhere. You could write down a over sine a equals b over sine b, where b is this angle here, but you don't know angle b. Or you could say a over sine a equals c over sine c, but you don't know angle c either, so you don't have enough information to use the sine rule. Okay, so let's follow the cosine rule. Now we could rearrange this to get cos of a and then plug in all the numbers, or we could plug the numbers in first and then rearrange. It doesn't matter, of course. So what I normally prefer to do is to rearrange this to make cos a the subject and then plug in the numbers. So if we do that, we get cos a equals a squared minus b squared minus c squared divided by minus 2bc. So we bring the b squared plus c squared over and they change sign. And then we divide across by minus 2bc. So now we plug in the values. So a is 5.66, b is 10, c is 6, over minus 2 times 10 times 6. So this will give us the cos of a, and from that we can find angle A. So we have 5.66 squared minus 10 squared is 100, 6 squared is 36, and we want to divide this number by minus 2 times 10 times 6, minus 2 times 60. So we get 0.86637. So we take the inverse cos of that, and you see we get 29.96. That's very close to 30 degrees, as we saw before. So, in summary, we use the cosine rule when we are given two sides of a triangle and the included angle, and we want to find the third side. And we're looking for a side, so we call it small a. And the other situation is where we are given three sides of a triangle, and we want to find any angle. So suppose we want to find this angle here. Well, we would call this angle capital B. If we're looking for this angle, we would call it capital A. Actually, you should label the sides in such a way that the angle is called capital A. It's just a little bit easier. Then we can use the version of the cosine rule that I showed you earlier. So if we call the angle that we're looking for capital A, then this side is small a, and the other two sides are B and C. So these are the two situations where we have to use the cosine rule. Well, you don't have to remember this, of course. If you forget this, you can attempt to solve these triangles using the sine rule, and you will find that you won't have enough information. So basically, we use the cosine rule when we don't have enough information to use the sine rule.